Okay, so today I'm going to talk about the SM57. This guy. Is this the one microphone to rule them all? Let's discuss it. While combing the internets, I've discovered there's a lot of videos talking about the SM57 and how you can like record anything with it. I don't know, in some cases, sometimes I agree with it, but sometimes I don't. They go for $100, which is a really good price for a microphone. So you can buy a few of these and add to your collection. And I think because of the price, you'll see these in any working studio. I don't think there's ever been a studio I haven't worked in that hasn't had at least 2 or 3 of these microphones kicking around. Talk about the build quality. This thing is built like a tank. Out of all my microphones, the SM57 and the 58 are probably the 2 of my most durable microphones. And considering they're the cheapest ones that I have, I've only broken one SM57 in my life. Again, $100, we got another one really quick. This actually might be the replacement. So this type of microphone is known as a dynamic microphone. So it uses a diaphragm hooked up to a magnet, and as vibrations move that diaphragm, it moves the magnet, and that's how it converts acoustic energy to electricity. This type of microphone is a cardioid pattern microphone. So that means it picks up most from the front and rejects from the back. Because of the build and make, these things are perfect for live sound. So you can have this on a guitar amp, you can have this on a drum kit, and it'll reject more from the back than from the front, and which makes it a very useful multi-tracking microphone. So having an SM57 to record something on axis than off axis can really increase your sonic palette. If you're not sure what on axis and off axis is, let me geek out for a little minute. Okay? Let's pretend this is a speaker and this is the microphone. If this is aimed directly at the sound source at its most optimal direction, we would call this on axis. Higher frequencies tend to travel really quickly in a single direction, where lower frequencies are more omnidirectional. They travel all over the place. They move air a little bit different. If you have a microphone on axis, you're gonna get a lot of those higher frequencies. Whereas if you start to move something off axis, which is now not having the capsule directly at the source that you're recording, it'll start to reject some of those higher frequencies. Therefore, you're getting more of the low frequencies and less of the higher frequencies, creating a more warmer tone. A microphone is what's called a transducer. It takes one form of energy and converts it to another form of energy. So depending on the make of the microphone, the style, just the build quality, you will never get a perfect ratio of a 1-to-1. You'll never get 1 acoustical or 1 dB for 1 volt. Like something that would never happen. This microphone is pretty good. It's about average to what you would see other dynamic microphones. Then you have something like the SM7B or a ribbon microphone that require a lot more gain because the way they're designed loses more energy. So the sensitivity is important. Now remember, a microphone that has a lower sensitivity rating isn't necessarily bad. In fact, it's very important because not all instruments we record are the same. Like for example, a kick drum creates a very strong transient. And if you take a very sensitive microphone and shove it in front of a kick drum, it's gonna overload. Whereas if you have a very quiet singer and you use a microphone that isn't that sensitive, you're just gonna be cranking the gain like crazy. So knowing the sensitivity of the microphone is very important. It just so happens that the SM57 falls in a really good category that most consumer preamps out there will be able to power it just fine. Whereas if you had an SM7B, you probably will need something a little bit more to get more gain to get it up to some kind of working level. Oftentimes the SM57 is compared to the SM58, and they actually use the same Unidyne 3 capsule. So they're very similar in build. The only difference is the grill. The SM58 has a big round grill because it's meant as a vocal microphone. It gives the diaphragm some protection from the vocalist, whereas the SM57 has a flat grill. This makes it really good for miking instruments. If you're miking a speaker or you're miking a snare, for example, you can get pretty close with this microphone, whereas the 58, not so close. Fun fact about the SM57, it is the official microphone of the US government when it comes to presidential speaking. I think that's been the case since 1965. The main reason is because it's a dynamic microphone, it does not require phantom power, which is something that is required for a condenser microphone. And like I said before, the sensitivity factor, it makes it a really good microphone that you can use pretty much any preamp and you'll be able to power it really well. I've recorded vocals with this microphone and actually really like it specifically on myself. Okay, now that I've talked a lot about the positive things about this microphone, I don't think it is still the perfect microphone to rule them all. I think there are scenarios that it doesn't quite do the job. Let me know what you think. In my experience, I've had a hard time using this microphone on lower frequency instruments like kick drum and bass. The lower frequencies, it tends to roll off quite a bit. So if you're looking for something to capture those frequencies around the like 45 to 80 hertz, I've always had a hard time getting something, and I've always had to pair this microphone with something else. So for example, I might pair it with a D112 or a Beta 52. It's almost perfect, but for lower frequencies, I do struggle with it. If you look at the frequency spectrum, you do see that boost around that 2 to 5K, and those are the golden mid frequencies, vocals, guitar, and I think that's why we really gravitate to this microphone. Thank you very much. If you found this video useful, like and subscribe, and let me know what you think about SM57s. If you do use it on low end, if it does do all your needs, let me know.